You don't have to make the choice. But it is very unfair to the world and to yourself and to your family to be sitting in pain and pretending like you don't have a say in it. Like, just get real with yourself. What's not working? Do you want to stay there? And understand if you stay there, that's okay. No judgment. But there is a consequence. There is a deep cost.
Welcome to another episode of the Fathers, Sons, Brothers podcasts. It feels so good to be back after a break of over a month for the festive season. I had a super powerful time in Peru. I spent 5 weeks there in the Sacred Valley. Did a journey into the underworld, going through an ISTA level 2 training, which was incredibly powerful. I'm going to do an entire episode just on my reflections and how much I gained from that particular training. And I came back, got to spend some time here in Guatemala over Christmas. And we've been strategizing and planning exactly what we want to create for 2025. And I'm super jazzed about everything that we have here on my whiteboard in my office, but also in the collective field of what we've been receiving back from men inside our community and working with the team here at Fathers, Sons, Brothers to make this an even more amazing year as we continue to build on the successes of not only this podcast, but also the Fathers, Sons, Brothers tribe, the legendary Lover Method, which is our men's relationship training program, which is underway at the moment. And we're having amazing breakthroughs in all of these various transformational spaces that we are creating for men. Before we get into today's show, I would love to just take a moment and share something that's really exciting that is kicking off at the end of March. If you're listening to this now as I record this, it's currently the 17th of January. And from the 24th until the 29th of March, I'm going to be hosting a men's leadership retreat here in Guatemala on Lake Atitlan, the most beautiful lake in the world. And the integrated leader is a space for men who are ready to uncover their gifts, meaning decide and understand what is uniquely yours to bring through a process of guided initiations, guided facilitations, reflections, slowing down, listening, receiving reflection from other integrated leaders who are on a path with you so that you know what is yours uniquely to bring to the world, and then create a roadmap so that you can go back into your life and actually bring these gifts that the world desperately needs from you back into the work that you're doing, into the communities that you're building, and into your businesses and into your families. There's a space in our Western society where a lot of men lack initiation. And what happens when we lack initiation is we lack the transition that comes from men from boyhood or sort of teenagehood into real manhood. And when we don't go through these powerful initiation transitions, we tend to move without much definitive change from one phase of life into the next. And in order for us to understand that we're moving into this next phase, there needs to be a complete death and a separation from the version of us that was before. And there's really 3 elements of an initiation that we're going to be unpacking inside this retreat. And the first is called severance. And this is like the cutting and breaking away of all the old stories and routines and patterns and relationships and all of that without taking a step away from the status quo, from the known, and stepping into something completely new, it's impossible to move to the next phase of initiation. So Integrated Leader Retreat is going to take you out of your normal environment, break some of the routines and patterns and stories that you have, and put you into a completely new and fresh space to be distanced enough from your old stories and old ways to be able to be in what we call the mystery, the place of not knowing, the place of listening. And that moves us to the second stage, which is the place of initiation. And the initiation is really the recognition that something needs to shift, something needs to die, something needs to change. And rather than being scared of that change, creating a safe space where, surrounded by other men, facilitated in a really beautiful retreat space that we have here on the lake, a villa that we've booked, and 10 other integrated leaders, you get the chance to be in this not knowing. to really listen without the distractions of your normal life to what it is that you really want to cultivate in your life in the next half of your life. If you're watching this and you're in your 40s or maybe you're heading towards 50, you're probably at a place where you've gone through life. You've had some hard knocks, you've had your heart broken, you've had some level of success, you've done it. And now what? What's genuinely meaningful? What really does your soul want to bring to this life before you leave? And if you haven't been through some sort of initiation, you could potentially get stuck in this loop of, well, this is what I've done, or this is what society has expected me to do, or this is what's paying the bills at the moment. And the purpose of initiation is not to throw all of that out, but really to throw out what's no longer serving you and what needs to be let go of, and to create a space for something new. So the initiation phase is what's going to happen at this retreat. And there's going to be a whole lot of processes that are going to be expertly guided so that you can come on this journey with us and really have a mirror to stare directly into and have reflected back to you what needs to no longer, what's not serving you in your life. Are you completely happy with your health, your body, your relationship, your money game, your serving of your mission, bringing your unique gifts to the world? And with this unfolding inside the retreat, you're going to go into the third phase of this process of initiation, which is integration. You have to take this newly found wisdom and actually bring it into the world and apply it in a way that's genuinely meaningful. And so you will leave this retreat having taken some time away from your normal routines, stepped into this unbelievably luxurious villa that we've got on Lake Atitlan, surrounded by 10 other men, go through a powerful journey into the unknown while also slowing down, giving yourself time to rest, time away from your devices, time away from traditional stories and static perhaps, and just be. Surrounded by beautiful nature, you'll get the chance to journal, you'll get the chance to rest, you'll get the chance to slow down and to listen. And then you'll take that listening, you'll create a plan that you can actually walk back with into the world and start to implement. But you're not going to be doing it alone, because the men that you work with and are surrounded by in this retreat are going to be your lifetime allies. They're going to be there with you and support you to take this particular mission that you have, your unique mission, and help hold you accountable to show up in the world. And you're going to do the same for me and the other men that are part of this retreat. This is not going to be for everybody. This retreat is for a select few men who have made it in all areas of their life, but you perhaps have this underlying sense that there's something missing, that there's something that feels like it's not quite enough. You've chased brass rings, you've had some success, but you feel like there's something more, that you're not quite sure what that is, but you know that you have come to this earth to do something more meaningful, and that feels like a yes for you. I'll leave a link in the show notes of this episode to check out the Integrated Leader. We've got a limited number of spaces and they are filling up quickly. So if you are a yes to come to Guatemala, you will be hosted in supreme luxury. There's a huge amount of magic that's going to unfold in this container. And I'm really excited to be sharing not only the wisdom and magic that I've learned and co-creating with some amazing people in this community, the town of San Marcos in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, but also to be supported and held by this powerful land that has been so transformational for me on my healing journey that I really can't wait to share it. If that sounds like you, check out the Integrated Leader. Details will be in the show notes below this episode. And now let's jump into introducing today's guest on the podcast. Today I had an amazing conversation with Toni Versic. He is a brother who got connected to me, got introduced to me through a mate of mine who lives down in Australia. And I watched Tony's podcast and I've been watching his content on social media for a while. And he is so sharp and so clear in how he leads men to show up as leaders and to show up more fully in their relationships and in their businesses, that he was an absolute joy to interview. He is really crisp in his delivery of how he teaches, the frameworks that he has developed and supported over 5,000 men to implement in their own lives. You can see the class that this man has in his ability to be able to really get down to the essence of some of the practical elements of the challenges that men face. But in this podcast, he also gives you real clear frameworks that you can apply into your own life. This is going to be one of those podcasts where you're going to need to get a pen and paper. You can listen while you're driving, but make sure you create some timestamps, because there's a section in here somewhere around minute 29 where Tony and I speak about relationships, and he does almost like a 20-minute masterclass on how men can show up more effectively in their partnerships. It's pure gold. Also, make sure you stay around till the end of this episode, because Tony and I deep dive into some content that, perhaps in a few years' time, with the global shenanigans and overreach of power and fuckery, as Tony so eloquently calls it, could potentially get us cancelled. But I think it's a really important conversation to be having as men. And if you're in that place of feeling like something feels off in the world with our current global leadership and perhaps the pharmaceutical industries or large corporations and an overreach of power that feels like, you're concerned about censorship, you're concerned about some of the woke identity and how that's disruptive and actually hurting our families and our communities. Tony has some really, really powerful insights on how to ground yourself and feel centered, and practically what to be able to do about it. It's a super, super powerful episode. Thanks for checking it out, and I'll see you next time. Actually, just before I get into the show, I want to give you a free gift. The podcast production manager of this show, Shannon, was going through this episode, and she sent me a message saying that there were so many highlights and frameworks that are really applicable that Tony shares in this episode, that she decided to put them all together in a free downloadable PDF. So as you're listening to this, whether you're driving or cooking dinner or going for a walk, rather than having to pause every 2 minutes and write down some of the magic that Tony shares that I want you to be able to apply in your life and your relationships, Shannon has done all the work for you. Below this episode, in the show notes, wherever you're listening to this on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever you consume this podcast, there will be a link directly to a Google Drive, which has a free PDF that you can take and use for your own application of all the gold from this episode. No email address required, all the work done for you. And so thank you so much to Shannon for putting this together. And I hope that you are able to take some of the magic that Tony shares to help you in your life and your relationships. So without any further ado, let's get to today's show with Toni Versic. I'm here today with Toni Versic. Welcome to the Father, Sons, Brothers podcast.
I'm so excited, brother. Thanks for having me.
We know each other through a mutual friend, Craig, who came to one of your trainings. And when he connected me with you, I was like in the space of like really getting clear on how I want to bring my message to the world. And when I watch some of your content, I'm like, shit, you really have it dialed in. So I'd like to just get a sense, what made you start this journey of wanting to support men? Like, what's your entry point into men's work?
Complete and utter fucking disaster. That's probably the best way to start it. Yeah. So I grew up with severe anxiety and depression, man. I was not a confident human. My father was an alcoholic growing up, so I told myself I would never be that guy, the victim, the alcoholic, the guy who blames. And then 16, 17, 18, due to low confidence, that's exactly who I became. So I would drink with friends to the point of comatose. I'd stare at myself in the mirror, just punching myself in the face, thinking you're an ugly piece of shit. Just self-deprecation, like pure, just deep hatred for myself. And then at 21 years old, I found love. I found someone that I fell in love with, and I was deeply, deeply connected to this human being. And for the first time in my life, I had clarity. Like, I know what I want. I'm going to have children. I'm going to get married. Everything's going to fall into place. And that love and that connection with someone who loved me put me in this place where I felt like I could get through the negative thoughts, the darkness. So life became good. I was making good money. I was running a business. I was connected with someone. And then one day, it was a week before I was going to propose, my partner comes home, looks me in the eyes with this just look of dread on her face and says, "Toni, I don't love you anymore." And man, that fucking broke me. Like, it broke me. I went on a 3-month bender, cocaine, MDMA, cigarettes, alcohol, just constantly drunk and high, sleepless, and just blaming her, man. Like, how could you do this to me? Why didn't you let me know earlier? Playing the blame game, stuck in this victim mentality. hating her but loving her. And there was a point about 3 months into that where my father called me, the same father who was never there, the same father who's sedated with alcohol. And I told him, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't know if there's any point to it. That was my whole life ahead of me and it's gone now. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, son, you have so much more life to live and you have so much more to give. And it was like the penny dropped. And I got sober the next day. I started eating while exercising again. And a week later, I found my now current wife of 8 years, Rosie. And the transition started from there. There was a lot of roadblocks on the way. I'm sure we'll go into some. But it was like, if I keep doing this, I'm going to fucking die. And I get to take some ownership of my role in this.
Wow. I would love to hear why you think it was only a week. Like that seems like just unheard of. I was in the bottom of my slump. I made the decision, and a week later, things start to line up. What? How do you articulate that? I mean, I know a lot of people that get to the bottom and then spend years trying to get out. What do you articulate was your key to turning it around so quickly?
Well, it wasn't quickly, right? So it took 3 months to get to that decision. And the thing about a decision or a choice is it happens in a split second. So for some men, it takes 30 years to get to that split second decision. My father is one of those men, and he's never got to that decision. So it may seem quick, but it was at the time 25 years of victim mentality, shame, guilt, trauma. So even though it was 3 months of being in the pit had lasted a lot longer. And when we have a deep enough sense of emotion and meaning attached to that emotion, we can create a lasting change. So, for example, you have a smoker who smokes for 20 years and then he gets cancer, and the thought and the reality setting in that he could be dead in a year and lose his children, that emotion and the meaning behind that emotion and story is so deep that man is going to fucking change. So, in that moment, the meaning that I created was, if I stay in this place, I will die. And the reason I'm so broken is because I have lost love. So if I kill myself or if I continue to stay in this place, I will be exactly like my father who has not had love. And I sat in that emotion after being hungover and sleepless. And it got to the point of burning pain in my chest and sickness in my stomach. And that emotion created a story within me of create something different. So the story was, I've lost love, I've lost everything. The emotion was, I'm a piece of shit, failure, shame, guilt. I took that emotion and I fed it into a different story. And that story for me didn't happen overnight. It happened in a split second. It took a long time to get there. But the story was rewritten to, I'm going to be damn sure that the next relationship I get into, she will never leave. And if she does, I can put my hand on my heart and say, I've done everything in my power to be the best fucking man she could ever have. And then if she leaves, I'm good. So when I looked in the mirror in that place, I realized that, of course, my partner left because I wasn't a man, I was a boy. And I was not being real or honest with myself about the problems. So it's a bit of a long winded answer, but it didn't happen overnight. And the emotion and the story changed. I took the emotions, I changed the story because I held the pen. And every man holds the pen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so good. So good. There's also a part of that that I just want to underscore, which is like there's a moment that you took responsibility for that. The loop that I see some of my clients get into, and me too sometimes, is it's like somebody else's fault. Like this has not gone well because of somebody else. But when you step back into that place of self-responsibility, they're like, okay, she left and she was the love of my life. And I played some role in that. You suddenly reclaim all of that power.
That's a great frame, man. And if I can touch on that, I didn't know what you just shared. Like, you clearly understand it. And it's like the blind spot. If you're driving on the highway and you turn right and a semi truck runs you over and you die, it's not because you wanted to hit the truck, it's because it was a blind spot.
Right.
And I believe a blind spot for so many men is that we hold all of the power. So there are 4 things you can control as a modern day man. They are your thoughts, so what you focus on. They are your emotions, which are based upon your thoughts. They are your actions and reactions. And no one is the puppet master in your head controlling those things. So up until that point in my life, I blamed her for leaving. I blamed my father for the fact I drank. I blamed my mother for how stressed I was playing the blame game without realizing that I had the power to control those things. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
problem with having the power that you just shared to control those things is that if you are in control, it means it's your responsibility. So
Right.
everything you don't have is on you. It's not necessarily your fault, but it is your responsibility, which means you hold the power, but it also means you have a heavy weight on your shoulders.
Yeah.
If you can actually accept that, though, you give yourself freedom.
So good. How do you currently track your own shadows and blind spots? Because in spite of this, we have this power, we have the ability to be able to show up and claim responsibility for everything, and we all have a shadow. So how do you track that in yourself? What are your tools for tracking that in yourself and your clients?
Great question. Great question. So we're currently building out an app. We've spent about 250 grand on it. And it's a system for tracking your thoughts and feelings. So we just discussed the four things you can control: thoughts, feelings, actions, reactions. If you can understand yourself as a man, you understand the stories, language, and beliefs in your head and the emotions they create, then you now have awareness. So you put a mirror up in front of yourself. So every day, when you start your day and you go into your morning routine to power up, we call it a power up to put your armor on, getting clear: what am I thinking about today? What am I focusing on? Is it the past, present, or future? Is it things I can't control or things I can control? So, what am I thinking about? How am I feeling today? So, single word emotions. This morning, I felt anxious. So, I wrote anxious. And then, why am I feeling that? Well, I had a coffee before this podcast with Gareth, and I don't normally drink coffee, and I'm fucking high as a kite right now. I'm wired. I'm feeling grateful. Why? Because I just had my second daughter. So I have my thoughts and my focus, I have my feelings, and then I have what am I choosing to do today? So, what actions am I going to take? What are the most important tasks? So now I take the negative thoughts and negative feelings, which are normal. We have 80,000 a day, the shadow, as you say,
Yeah.
and we acknowledge them. We don't hide from them or get too busy to sit with them. We sit with them, we feel them, we experience them, and we go, cool, do I get to address this now? Or do I have the ability to park this, put it in the garage, and focus on these action steps today? So, step one: what am I thinking about? How am I feeling? What am I going to do today? Then, throughout the day, breath work and meditation, getting myself out of my mind and into my body. Deep breaths. I did a 10-minute breath work before this. And then at the end of the day, we have an evening reflection process. So we power up in the morning, we power down in the evening. We track this all in our app. And we track things like our peace score. Most men are so busy and stressed and triggered that they have no peace. I've been that guy for years. So what is my score out of 10? How much joy did I experience today out of 10? And we ask ourselves some more questions. What challenges did I face today? What did I achieve today? What triggered me today? And what did I learn today? So in the morning, awareness. What is going on inside of me internally, in my subconscious, in my shadow? In the evening, reflection. What happened today? Now
Right.
we have 2 touch points a day. If you do that 365 days a year, that's over
Yeah. Different
700
person.
moments. Exactly, because you are aware of yourself. If you know yourself and become your own best friend, you're going to make a lot of mistakes and be in pain, but you will grow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope
Yeah.
that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's also something in perhaps implied but not said. Like there's something also in surrounding yourself with men that you trust to be able to call you out on the things that you can't see. Like the self-assessment is solid, and like I still, in spite of that, I still have a repeating pattern that I can't see in my awareness. Like some sense of not enough, or overworking, or over struggling on a specific thing, or the blind spot that you said. The turning right but not realizing there's a semi there, and just not being able to catch that. Like the awareness to be able to seek that out has definitely
Mm.
been part of like our community as well. Like just genuinely sitting in a circle of men that you love and trust and say like, what can't I see? Like what's my golden shadow? We do that as a frame to see
Amazing.
what are the things that you should be doubling down on. Like these are the things that I really see in you. And this comes with time. You got to build these trust relationships with men. It's not the same people that you work with. It's a different frame to be in this space to build this trust and then be like, what are the things that I'm good at? Double down on those. And what am I not seeing, or what's holding me back from the person you hear me saying that I want to be?
Agreed, man. That's so powerful. And if you think about what you just shared around your shadow and your patterns that have been coming up for years, like you're a coach and you support men with this. But how long would you say some of these patterns that have held you down have lasted? A month, a year, longer? Like how long has it been for you?
How long have they lasted in my experience?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think most of these patterns are entrenched in us from a young age, childhood, and younger than that, you know. And so the awareness that I teach is more like recognizing that trigger or that anxious emotion that's coming up for me, what's underneath that. And then I use like a tool of parts work where I get to know these younger versions. So I've got an inner people pleaser. He's a young, polite boy called Charlie. He's based on the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory character. And he just wants to make sure that he's a polite boy for mom and dad because I received love from them at that stage. So I
Mm,
went through my life going through the process of being polite to everybody because I could feel the love of my parents coming in from that. And
mm,
that became my strategy. So that was what the program that I ran. And it's a superpower. And I
mhm.
believe our superpowers and our shadows are so closely aligned because we tend to easily go to our superpower, but the nice guy, you know, at some point is not actually holding my truth, is more worried about other people than myself. And that starts to become the shadow piece. So I think what I
Mhm.
notice in me and a lot of people that I work with, some of those things come up as a function of maybe heartache in middle age or losing a job and having a hit of self-confidence. But the deep ones start at a young age.
Yeah, man. So true. And it's amazing that you're teaching that to your guys and living that. Because when you think about it, every single thing we do in life is a pattern, right? Tony Robbins
Yeah,
mentioned this on a podcast just a few weeks ago, Patrick Bet David podcast, amazing podcast. And he said, if you understand patterns, fear disappears. So the audience listening or watching at home can try this. If you fold your arms, it feels comfortable. But if you try and fold your arms the opposite way, you can give it a go right now, it feels uncomfortable because what you've done is you've changed the pattern. And that's just folding your arms. When you go to the bathroom and take a dump, right, you either fold or scrunch a certain way. Now, next time you're trying to wipe your ass, try wipe with the opposite hand. It's a shit time, right? Terrible jokes, dad jokes, right? The point is that everything's a pattern. The way you drive a car, you don't think about it, it happens without thinking. Now, when
yeah,
you first learn to drive a car, you have to look at the mirrors and the rear view and all these sorts of things. But we become so good at doing the thing that it becomes subconsciously ingrained in us. So the way we do anger, the way we do anxiety, the way we do people pleasing, the way we do arguments in our marriage, the way that we sedate, these are patterns that started very early on. And if you can begin to unpack and recognize the patterns, you can begin to upgrade them and rewire them. And I want to tie this into why I feel so many men fucking struggle in this day and age. We don't do this intentionally, but as men, we are deeply dishonest with ourselves. You know, we have guys come to us who make 10 to $100 million a year, super successful. But the other areas of their life, they got wealth sorted, their body is breaking down, they're overweight, their mind is a prison, negative thoughts, patterns of anxiety and stress, and their relationships are falling apart. And these men will literally wait till they hit rock bottom, just like I did when my partner left. They will sweep the problems under the rug without going, you know what? I'm deeply unhappy and dissatisfied. And if we can just begin to be honest with ourselves, life is not working. What's not working? What's the pattern, which requires deep work? Then we
right.
can have the life we deserve. But we fucking lie about our problems and then we wonder why things begin to break. It's very sad.
Yeah. I
Should
mean,
take a
there's
break
a lot of this.
there.
No, it's just, you know, it's so
Yeah.
true. And, you know, it's almost like I sometimes wonder whether we need that rock bottom. You know,
Yeah.
I had to get there as well, this dark night of the soul. And I think there's some sort of fucking painful initiation that comes from that moment where you really do have a choice point where it's like, okay, I'm just going to carry on. My life will be shit forever. And for me, I can feel this point in my life where there's two timelines. There's Gareth who never left Johannesburg, that was looping in addiction, and yeah, just completely like maybe something similar to you, just didn't love myself at all, would seek validation in my intimate connections, but it was all in the shadow. Like I didn't feel comfortable. I wasn't being honest with myself, as you said.
Mm.
on reflection now, like hindsight being 2020, like that carried on for a long time before I actually got to the bottom to make that call, you know. And
Mm.
I think there has to, for me, there had to be the solid rock bottom to get to that place. And then the maturity comes as like, okay, maybe I can start to listen a little bit earlier, you know, that when life starts to feel uncomfortable or the scarcity story comes up or I'm not enough story comes up or the people pleasing is alive, there's a part of me that can perhaps recognize it a bit sooner, definitely with these tools, but also as a function of having, I feel like I had to go through that as much as it sucked. And in many ways, I've actually been teaching myself and coaching others to recognize that actually the me of today that stands here all in my flow with my relationships and my money and my work and on mission,
Mm.
that's not the hero of my journey. The hero of my journey was the one that was telling me to wake the fuck up when stuff wasn't aligned in my life. And that makes it easier for me to love that part of myself because they working with people, you can go to separation. You know, you go on the personal growth path and every day you grow, you're better than the man that you were yesterday, but you don't judge that person. You don't separate from that part, you know? And when you look far back, like 10 years, it's very easy to go, dude, you were completely out of your integrity. What a cunt. And it's actually like, no, dude, that's the hero of my journey, getting me to wake up. And that's reframe has been super strong for me.
It's so powerful, man. I love that you shared that. And ultimately, it comes down to this idea that your breakdown is almost always your breakthrough. Right. And
Thank
so
you.
many men who are struggling, they are in this place of, why is this happening to me? I can't get out of this. I don't have enough time. This isn't fair. And this blame game, this place that you're stuck in, that you were stuck in, that I was stuck in, once you break through that, you look at that breakdown with so much gratitude. So it's very difficult for a man whose wife has said, I don't love you anymore, and who has 3 children between the ages of 7 and 10 to raise, who are now taken from him, to look at this breakdown and go, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. But when you work on yourself and you take the lessons and growth from the experience, you actually do look at it from a frame of gratitude. And
Mm-hmm.
if I may, there are 4 core areas that men get to focus on to be successful in life. You have your body, you have your mind, you have your relationships, and you have your wealth. And if you think about a square, if one of those pieces is missing, everything crumbles. The foundation is built on all 4. So a lot of men, they are successful in wealth, but their relationship is falling apart. So even if they have a six pack and their mind is strong, there's only so long you can be strong for. Then some other men, they have a great relationship and a healthy body and a healthy mind, but their business is stressful in a prison. Now, most men have not even one of these things lined up. And the problem for a lot of guys is they're stuck in this pattern, like you and I were, where they're trying to work on one area, but they're sacrificing all the other areas, right? What's the most
Yeah.
common theme in men? I'm not enough. Therefore, I must earn. I must prove myself, whether that's through business or wealth, whether that's through looking good. So we direct all this time into being successful because we think success is money, right? We sacrifice our health, we put on weight, we
Yeah.
sacrifice our mind. We can't switch off. We're constantly stressed. We're triggered and reactive. And then we sacrifice our relationships. And the most common story you hear from men is, I lost it all working for the people I love, but I don't have the people I love. So as a man, you do not have to wait for the breakdown. Some men do. There are 2 ways you can change. You can go, my wife has left, everything's fucked, let's change.
Right.
Or you can listen to a podcast like this one and self-reflect and go, what's not working in my body? I got 4 areas. What's not working in my body? Okay. What's not working in my mind? Okay. What's not working in my relationships? These are fucking hard questions to ask yourself. What's not working in my business or career? Now, that might take you an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's deep, it's hard. There is pain to doing that exercise. There's the now pain. Now, there's also the later pain of not doing that exercise.
Yep.
Because if you ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario here? If I get to the fucking raw truth, if I continue to have my body, mind, relationships, and wealth in this place, what is the worst case scenario? For most men, it's divorce, mental breakdown, heart attack, death. So we can face the pain now by listening to a podcast like this, or we can go, yeah, I do have those problems, but it's all good, sweep it under the rug. That later pain is much greater. So just to summarize, I do agree with you. Some men need the breakdown, but there are many men who don't have to go through the pain you and I went through. They can
True.
decide today, this pain stops right now with me because I'm not going
Right.
to fucking lose everything.
That's the choice point you were talking about, right? That was what you said at the
Yes.
beginning, to make that
Yes.
decision, to stand in there and be like, I'm ready to make this choice. Eh? Yeah.
And you don't have to make the choice. But it is very unfair to the world and to yourself and to your family to be sitting in pain and pretending like you don't have a say in it. Like, just get real with yourself. What's not working? Do you want to stay there? And understand if you stay there, that's okay. No judgment. But there is a consequence, there is a deep cost. So decide what you want to do.
So good. So good. Thank you, man. That's I love those four. We've got eight, like in our community, something similar, but
What
they
are they?
amount to the same things. Um, Similar, just a little bit more broken down. So, like love and relationships is one, then social environment is one, keeping a space for fun, mission, money, community. So, the same
Amazing.
general concepts, just broken down into a little bit more of a space to just self assess as to what's not working. And then recognize the same as you said, like the long term cost of choosing to ignore it. You know, you can pretend it's like we talk about the dashboard in the car. Like if you've got a 2 out of 10 there, sooner or later that thing's going to eventually become a problem, and you can look at it now and go through the process of working through it, or recognize that it's going to start to degrade the other pillars, you know, because they all need to be strong in order to support the foundational piece on which your life is built. So yeah,
100%.
a very similar way of looking at that. That's cool.
Amazing. I love that, man. And community is a big piece I didn't mention. And you're so right. As men, we have this lone wolf mentality, and being around other men who are growing and exposing your flaws and patterns is so fucking powerful. So the first stage is self-reflection. It's like, what's not working? What's the consequence? That alone should create pain within you. And I like to pull that pain forward. I'm like, if you continue doing this, are your kids going to remember you as a hero or that alcoholic? If you continue doing this, are you going to die and never see your grandkids? That's painful. Like if you get a man to visualize coming home into his house he's worked so hard for, and there's another man on his couch raising his kids, fucking his wife, that makes most men feel disgusting. But most men go, that would never happen to me. Yet 50% of marriages end in divorce. So reflect on where you are, what the consequences are, and then find a community of men like yours or anyone else out there, and do something to get support. Um, we do a lot of work around relationships. So our niche is like high performing guys, successful in business and career, but their relationships are breaking down. That might be because they're unhealthy or they're stressed or they're triggered. And I found there are quite a few things that we do wrong in relationships. And I'll tell you right now, if your relationship isn't working well with your partner or spouse, it doesn't matter how successful you are. It fucks with
Yeah.
everything. So I don't know if you want to go down that path, but it's very important to have all that lined up. Yeah.
You basically just teed me up. I was going to talk to you about relationships as a vehicle for transformation, and yeah, I wanted to dive into some of the magic that you've been on with this beautiful woman that's in your life and the mother of your kids.
Yep.
And yeah, I just want to underscore what you're saying. You know, there's a Harvard study that over 85 years asked men on their deathbed, what was the thing that made your life meaningful? It wasn't money. It had little to do with travel or material possessions or status in society. It was always a reflection of their relationships, the relationships that made life meaningful. Hey, FSB crew, a quick message to say 97% of you who watch or consume this podcast are not subscribed. Subscribing to the show really supports us to be able to grow and reach more people, as well as include and improve the quality and caliber of guests that we have on this show. Our goal is to get this number down to 70%. And so if you have ever received any value from the content and conversations on this podcast, please consider subscribing. It really supports us and the work that we're doing. Now, back to the show. Yeah, I would love you to get into how you frame relationships, how you see the importance of them, and yeah, where do we get stuck in this? Where do men get stuck in the weeds with relationship?
Mm. There's a lot to unpack there, so I'll probably take us a few different directions, but I think it's very important to go in all these directions. I'll start with this. I was watching the Lioness show on Paramount last night. We don't watch TV.
What is that?
It's just a special operations TV show, right? It's just a mindless watching. My wife and I don't watch TV. And we got to the second episode, and there's this doctor or brain surgeon in there, and he's looking at the scan of a 6-year-old girl. And she has a tumor the size of a baseball in her head. and he needs to go and tell the parents about that tumor. So he goes into that room, I'm getting emotional, and I'm watching this and I'm like, this is some mindless watching. I get to relax. And he's telling the parents that she has less than 6 months to live. And I've got a 3.5-year-old daughter. I've got a 16-day-old daughter. And I just, it made me think about how important my family is to me, but how I often don't live by those values. We say family is important. We say we love the people around us. We appreciate and respect them, but we don't always live by our values. So the reason I'm sharing that story with you is because I am not perfect and my relationships were breaking down for much of my life. About 5 years ago, I had dealt with this breakup and the same fucking problems were occurring in my current marriage with Rosie, my wife. I was drinking every single day to deal with the stress. While coaching men, I'd be drinking whiskey at midday on coaching calls. Living as a fraud, as a liar, I was constantly struggling to switch off. I had so much stress within me, man. I was so deeply broken and afraid and uncertain. And that through the alcohol, there was a disconnection because I would become rude and arrogant. So then my wife and I stopped having sex. We stopped communicating. We would bottle things up, and that would turn into arguments and just a deep level of disconnection. One night, my wife and I got into an argument about something stupid. It was always something stupid. And instead of dealing with that argument, I did what a lot of men do. I threw my drink at the wall, I ran to the balcony, and I jumped off the balcony. Now, luckily, it was only 2 stories. I was so drunk and limp that I just crumpled, broke nothing, hurt nothing, except my pride and ego. Now, not many men jump off a balcony, but that is a metaphor for men running and hiding in relationships. You can tell a man exactly how to communicate with his wife or partner, exact words to use, and he will hide and run from it. He can have a meeting at business in front of 100 shareholders. In the relationship, it doesn't happen. That was a turning point for Rosie and I, where I decided yet again to get my shit together. I found love. I decided to take responsibility, but I was still sedating. I was still numb. I was still not putting my family first. Fast forward to today, things are drastically different. My marriage is the absolute best part of my life. My wife is my best friend. She wants to have sex with me. She gives me blowjobs in the car. She is intimate with me. She appreciates me. She understands me, and I support and understand her. But man, it took 8 years to get here. And it took me first taking radical responsibility of what was not working in my relationship. Okay. I blamed my wife for the lack of sex. I blamed my wife for not understanding the business stress I was going through. I blamed her for judging me for drinking. I decided, yet again, to take radical responsibility. I'm not having enough sex, my fault. I'm not feeling appreciated, my fault. Now, I want to make a caveat here because every time I mention this, men get shitty and go into victim. What about her? She has a massive role to play. Your wife or partner has a massive role to play. But if you're the best version of yourself and you're giving her love, appreciation, support, understanding, and respect. We call it laser focus, LASUR. She's feeling loved. She's feeling appreciated. She's feeling supported, understood, and respected. Her love bank gets full. She gives you more of what you want. So again, this didn't happen overnight. Please don't think that I'm some perfect fucking human being. Over the last 8 years, I've learned how to fill my partner's love bank, take radical responsibility. We're not getting laid. She needs one of those 5 things. What does she need? How do I give it to her? She reciprocates. So the long-winded session here is relationships. I have not prioritized them. But thinking about my daughter dying, thinking about losing my wife when I jump off that balcony, I knew I needed a formula and a system to improve my relationships. And at Empowered Man, that is the laser focus. There are techniques you can use to give love, appreciation, support, understanding, and respect to the people around you, not because you want something, because you want to give. Not because you want anything in return, because you want to give. And when that happens, guess what? They follow.
Wow, dude, that's laser sharp. So good. So good.
Yeah.
It feels like what you described there is something, and I also have a very strong focus on relationship and the recognition that it's, I think, one of these I think there's three things to do three of the most powerful vehicles for transformation are starting your own business, being a parent, and being in a deeply committed partnership, because all of that stuff is going to bring up your mirror for all of your own stuff. And what I heard you describe there was the three phases of relationship, like the pre-tragic, everything's amazing, we love each other, the sex is flowing, it's amazing. And then you get to this place of complete disillusionment of like, okay, this person has some core wounds. Surprise, surprise. They become a really strong mirror for all of my own stuff, which starts to come up. And I notice a lot of people, me in the past as well, I bail at that stage. There's got to be somebody more perfect out there. And I move from relationship to relationship because I didn't realize that that part of the relation process is a feature. It's not a bug. It's supposed to happen after going really deep with somebody. You become a really strong mirror for one another. So the tragic phase is sitting through that discomfort and being really committed to the partnership, even though it sucks, even though the intimacy's fallen off a cliff, even though all of those things, and then holding it together and committing to the next phase where you are now, which is like, oh my God, this is the best it's ever been. Like everything turns back on because you've navigated those places and you've held the space for your partner, understood their desires, showed up to protect their nervous system, even when I felt like I wasn't getting what I needed. And then you move into this really powerful place that people can get to. I don't think you get to that phase that you're in now, this post-tragic, unless you've been through some of that middle pain.
100% man. And it's normal and necessary.
Yeah,
So I don't believe you find the one. Like there's one example, Layla Hormozi and Alex Hormozi. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're very big in the
I do know
States.
them. Yeah,
They're like two perfect traumaless people that have found each other, right? It's very rare you find a traumaless human. But I believe you become the one together. So Rosie and I had hundreds of difficult conversations and arguments sitting in bed, facing at opposite directions. I've got my stories and beliefs about what happened. She's got her stories and beliefs on what happened. She was
yeah,
raised a certain way, different traumas, different values. I've got different traumas, different values. It is insane to believe that we're just going to magically agree on everything and connect on everything. But the difference was I knew that we got to work through it. Not had to, we got to work through it. And we'd sit there for 2 hours angry and then we'd talk about it. And we didn't have to always agree. Sometimes we didn't agree, but we at least understood each other's perspectives. And that collision created connection. Now, think about a car accident or a car wreck. When you collide, it is nasty, right? But it also creates a connection. And
yeah.
now we're at a point where we're not colliding like we're two cars going 100 miles an hour. We're actually on train tracks, and those train tracks are aligned. Think about
Right.
train tracks. If they diverge slightly, the train derails, right? So in your relationships, identify what is your role in what you're getting and not getting, right? How can you become the best version of yourself physically in your body, mentally in your mind, in terms of your communication and relationships, in terms of your balance with wealth, those four areas again? And if you can become the best version of yourself and give your partner what she needs, it's very unlikely that she doesn't come on that journey with you. It's not about changing her. It's not about pulling her. As a man, when you have your shit together, you lead. You're still going to have arguments and disconnection and all the problems you mentioned, but you're saying, I'm going to take the lead here. I'm not going to blame my partner. She's definitely a part of this. She's not perfect. She nags me. She pushes my buttons. But how can I communicate with her and connect with her so we're on the same train tracks? And I'll tell you right now, it took me 6 or 7 years. We've been together for 8. The last year and a half, zero arguments, so much sex, so much intimacy. But 3 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't need to take you 8 years. You can do it in 6 months with the right coaching, the right plan, the right strategies. One of those
For sure.
strategies is filling their love bank and daily deposits. We can go into that if you want to. But just recapping that, like, yes, you're going to go through pain and challenges in your relationship, but take lead on that. Take ownership of that. What's my role in this relationship? What can I work on? Work on it meticulously, become better. And guess what? Your partner's coming on the fucking journey, man.
Yeah, bro. Go into the daily love bank deposits. I feel like there's something there.
Okay. So there's three strategies that I teach my clients. The first one is understanding laser focus. So where is there a lack of love, appreciation, support, understanding, and respect? Now the second strategy is how do we give that to someone? So strategy one, awareness. Strategy two, action. So how can I make my partner feel loved, appreciated, supported, understood, or respected. Now, you can guess or you can ask. So, for
Yeah.
example, my partner feels supported when I take my daughter upstairs, bathe her, and put her to sleep. That is support to her. Support to me is I come home after a long work day, there's hot food on the table, and she's smiling. That's all I need.
Yeah.
As a man, you just want a happy wife who smiles and respects you and asks you how your day was.
Yeah.
Now, I can expect my wife to give me that, or I can tell her that's something I desire. Now, before I tell my wife what I'm missing or what I'm lacking or what I want, I first get to make deposits into her love bank. So imagine you go to the bank, you ask for $1 million to be withdrawn. You've got $1,000 in the bank account. They either tell you to fuck off, you don't have the money, or they give you the money, but you go into a deep overdraft. And what we tend to do as men is we want more from our partner. What do we want? We want sex, we want respect. Two main things, right?
Yeah.
So we expect our partner to give that to us, attached to stories. I've been working all day. The house is a mess. All you have to do is make sure the kids don't die. I'm the one doing all the work. Victim, victim, victim. Why am I
Yeah.
not getting sex? So we're trying to withdraw from this empty bank. What I propose is you get really good at filling her love bank, making a deposit each day. It could be an SMS. You know what? I never do this, but I was thinking about how grateful I am that you support me in these areas. The next day, write a note. I love you more than I can imagine. The next day, get her some flowers. And you're going to figure out what her love languages are, what love, appreciation, support, understanding, respect mean to her. And you do that for a week, nothing comes back to you. Most men go, it's not working. You do it for a month, you do it for 3 months, you do it for as long as you can. And if you get 3-6 months in and she's not coming on the journey, sure, you have a conversation about that. Now, as you fill up her love bank, you're going to see in her, she feels more connected to you. She will desire you deeply. In that place, you now have permission to have a clearing conversation. You can say, I've realized that I've been doing all these things wrong. You probably want more of this. I get to take ownership here. What are your thoughts on that? And then you listen to her. You tell her, what I've heard you say is, because women want to be heard, is this. Is that accurate? What more do you want from me? So now you're understanding what she wants. You're filling her love bank, making her feel loved. You're asking her for feedback, which most men are terrified of because most feedback is just nagging. You've done all these things. Now you have permission to go, all right, amazing. This is what I'm committed to. Is it okay? Would it be all right if, ask for permission, if I shared with you some things I would like in this relationship? She says yes. Of course she says yes. You say, look, when I come home from work, I just want you to ask me how my day was, and I'm waiting for you to do it, but I've never told you that. Is that something you'd be open to? That's what I said to Rosie 2 years ago. She's like, never knew you wanted that. How the fuck do you not know? Of course she doesn't know. She can't read my mind.
Right.
So understand, fill the love bank, have clearing conversations about what you could do better, and then ask her, is it okay if you give me more of this? Rosie and I went on a holiday to Hawaii in October. We didn't have sex for 3 days. Normally when we go on holiday, we have lots of sex, but we have children now. We had a child. So I sat her down. I'm like, this is probably going to upset and trigger you, and I don't mean to. Now I've pre-framed her. I just wish we were more intimate right now, and I'm not feeling desired by you. It's just a story in my head, but I just wish that you wanted me more. She got angry and triggered. We worked through it. The next day, we're having sex. It's been great ever since. Most men don't communicate this way. So the love bank is daily deposits that opens you up to ask for more from your partner. Does that make sense?
So good. Yeah. Really good, man. It's like relationship masterclass. Super, super deep. Amazing.
Love it. I've got one more if you want me to share the last one.
Yeah, man. Bring it.
All right, cool. So this all gets to be put into a structure. So the structure is identify your weaknesses in your body, mind, relationships, and wealth. Step 1, and find the consequences. Step 2, take radical responsibility of your role in all those areas. Step 3, understand your partner's laser focus, make daily deposits, have conversations. The final step here is something called a love meeting, right? So every single week in our businesses, we have meetings, right? We meet with people, we meet with ourselves. Why don't we do that in our marriages, right? So what Rosie and I do every weekend, we teach it to our clients, is we have a date night and we have a love meeting on that date night. Now, if you have children, you can get some support or do it with the children in another room. There's always an excuse, right? And they're good excuses. I get it. I've got kids. But we sit down and now we ask every single week, What made you feel loved, appreciated, supported, understood, or respected? What could I have done better in each of those areas? Now, this is a very powerful question. Is there anything I did or didn't do this week that you want to address? Because think about how often, I used to look in the direction of another woman. My wife would see that. Her trauma would kick in from getting cheated on. He wants to fuck her. A week later, I saw how you looked at that woman. What woman? You know who I'm talking about? No, I don't. What the fuck are you talking about? She's holding on to it, right? I come home, stressful day, dishes in the sink for the third day. Don't say anything. She doesn't fucking care. That's what's going through my head. It comes out 3 days later, and I'm like, I can't fucking do this. We bottle things up. So, is there anything I did or didn't do you want to address? And what's something you want more from me next week? And it takes 5, 10, 15 minutes. So last night, Rosie and I had a date night. We talked about where we're feeling loved. She said, when you asked me to support with our eldest daughter, that made me feel upset because I'm supporting with our 16-day-old. Like, your role right now is to do more. And that made me feel like you don't understand me. I'm like, thank you for sharing that with me. I wasn't aware of it. See how powerful that communication is?
Yeah.
So we call it the love meeting, understanding where you are on that laser focus, understanding if there's anything unresolved, and then setting commitments for the following week. You do that 40 weeks out of the year, your relationship grows in alignment.
Love it. Such a good practice. Me and my beloved have something similar. We have this parts work tool that I was talking about is like recognizing all these different characters that exist inside of me: the polite boy, the king, the rebel, the seductress, all of these individuals, and we check in with one another in a similar weekly check-in, and we check in with each part. Like, are the internal kids having enough fun, or does the king feel like he's been in his power this week? Or, I'm asking her, does she feel like she's showed up enough for her exercise? And it's like a check-in for our two individual kingdoms, sovereign on their own, creating life together, checking in these various elements. And most of the time, the one edge I think for us, specifically for me, is fun. Like, did my kid have any fun this week? Especially if it's a week that I'm in a launch or in my business, I can feel like I'm on point there. But when you check in with these different parts, it's like, okay, so next week we're going to focus on making time for our kids to play, which means go paddleboarding or do something else that gets us into nature. And the same thing, just really recognizing where we haven't shown up well for ourselves and for one another in relationship.
So powerful, man. And this is why you probably have a great relationship. The key word there is check in. How
Yeah,
often do you check in with your partner? How often do you check in with yourself? Relationships are a mirror, right? Relationships are an amazing mirror, and you're spending the rest of your life with this person, potentially sharing children, finances, bank accounts, homes. So if that person isn't someone you can deeply trust, who you can deeply communicate with, who can hold up a mirror to your flaws, then what is that relationship? It's
yeah,
not the relationship you want and deserve. It's not the relationship she wants and deserves. So, as a man, if you can really commit to deep mastery in your marriage or relationship, that's going to help your business. It's going to help your mind. It's going to help your children. It's going to help the world heal from all the bullshit that's going on right now, which there is a lot of. So, check in, man. I love that you're doing that. And I love that you're teaching that to men. Kudos to you. That's fucking amazing.
thanks, dude.
Yeah.
That segue was exactly where I wanted to go next as well. I wanted to dive into that conversation that we had before we pressed record here, which was based on something that I saw around the bullshit that's happening in the world, and I want to get a sense of what you're worried about. Like, what do you see coming in terms of, like, maybe power overreach? Whatever you see happening specifically where you live, and give me a sense of what's alive for you around that topic.
Mm. This might get us canceled, but
Bring
that's
it.
okay. Let's fucking go. There is a lot of bullshit going on around the world right now. There is censorship in Australia now, digital ID getting introduced. Any videos you do about COVID or lockdowns or the government get censored on Instagram and Facebook. There is a lot of fuckery going on right now, and it is emasculating men and destroying society as a whole. Just a few years ago, if you were to say that a nuclear family of a mother and father and children is the best way or the healthiest way to raise children, that would have been normal. Now you're a bigot. These words are thrown around of racist and sexist and misogynist and all this bullshit where we're talking about just real biology. So we have the issues with censorship and government overreach. We have the issues with what it means to be a man and woman. We can't even fucking define that. And I'll tell you right now, when we have a society of fathers, being great leaders, and mothers being mothers and nurturing, that is a healthy society. But now we have all these problems with government overreach and censorship. So it is a deeply concerning time. And there are two paths we can follow as men. Path number one is we be a victim to that. Now, there's a difference between venting and getting upset and having passion behind a topic and sitting in victim mentality. So we can sit here and go, the banks are going to take everything, the government's going to take everything, they're going to censor us, or we can understand what's happening in society, which is deeply concerning, and we can prepare ourselves as men. So what does that mean? It means becoming mentally bulletproof, unfuckwithable, unfallible, water off a duck's back. It means building your wealth. Whether you like it or not, money and wealth are simply forms of freedom. They don't make you happy, they amplify. It means bolstering our relationships with our loved ones and the people around us. So it's about becoming a sovereign man, understanding that the government issues, the censorship issues, the talks about gender, all this woke bullshit that's going on is happening. And it may get worse or it might come back, which it seems to be doing right now with Trump and what's going on. But regardless of what happens over here, none of this shit's within our control, right? What's within our control? The man in the mirror. So for me, it's a scary place. I've got two daughters. I don't want my daughters going to school, and in Australia here they do this, saying you can be whatever gender you want. I don't want my daughters going to school and being told that they can go to the cat litter pile because they identify as cats. We're not putting our daughters through school. We're homeschooling them. So learning as a man, how do you acknowledge and bring awareness to all this bullshit and fuckery while also being sovereign, strong, and powerful and free, mentally, emotionally, financially? That's sort of my frame on it. There is a lot deeper we can go into this. It's very terrifying what's going on.
Yeah, I don't even quite know where to go. I've spent so much time down these rabbit holes, and it goes so deep. It's just, I guess it's worrying, and there's moments of feeling powerless. You know, it does feel like it's gone so far, and there's these tentacles of power that have gone into all elements of society, and this, yeah, it's the sovereignty that's gonna help us break free. And I think there's a place where the work that I'm doing and the work that I feel you're doing is
Mm,
actually sort of like an underlying catalyst of building power, you know, to have these types of conversations, to be able to show up and call bullshit on things like smart cities, and, you know, where that's been framed as something good. I don't know. I have some concerns around that, you know, because it seems to me like a little bit more control and a little bit less freedom for all of us. And yeah, I think at some point this is part of a groundswell. This is how I'm holding my work and the message that I'm putting into the world of, like, yeah,
mm,
let's fly below the radar until we're so big that we can just shift it in a moment and reclaim what are the most important values. Because I think it's at some level we mostly all share those values. You know, 90% of humanity shares these values of freedom and happiness and the ability to be able to move. And yeah, I have some concerns about it, and I'm trying to navigate it myself. But there are days where it just
mm,
feels like it's a lot, man. It's so much. That's why I've chosen to live in Guatemala, for example. Like I don't want to be in a first world country where there's really strong overreach. And yeah, for whatever that's worth, that's been my choice. And I
mhm.
also feel like from this place, it's like, how do I show up? For sure, the man in the mirror. That's where the only change can ever happen. And how do I share the magic or the wisdom, these types of conversations to help other people and support them who might be feeling this? Do you have anything on that? Like the person who's feeling
Absolutely.
powerless.
Dude, I love how aligned you are. I was literally about to talk about that. I want to touch on two things. The second one will be the war on masculinity. I'll touch on the powerless people. I get it. It's not easy, right? For Gareth to go to Guatemala and take his family, his business, his dogs, I'm assuming move everything is possible. But think about what happened during COVID. There were nurses, there were doctors, there were lawyers, there were tradesmen who were told that if they didn't get this jab, that they would lose their jobs. So it's easy for us who are digital nomads who have online businesses to say, sovereignty and freedom. But for the guy who literally needs to do this to feed his family, it is fucking hard. It is difficult. And my heart goes out to you. For those of you who are struggling financially and trying to keep up, which is so difficult to do with inflation, I feel it. I get it. I was almost bankrupt 3 years ago. And what I would say to anyone who is struggling or feels imprisoned or trapped, whether it's financially, emotionally, in their marriage, by the government, understand one thing. As long as you continue to believe that you are trapped and you have no power in the situation, you are right. Whether you believe you can or can't, you are right. So
Yep.
you can hold on to that belief. It's this belief that I had. It's this victim mentality I had. Or you can go, you know what? I'm aware of what isn't working. I'm aware of the challenges in society as a whole, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to find other people that are doing something about it, and I'm going to start today to create freedom in all these areas, my mind, my body, my relationship, and it won't happen overnight. But the best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is now. So it really
Yeah.
comes down to, if you are finding life difficult, if you are struggling, if you are afraid, that is okay. And you get to choose if you want something different. But the worst thing we can do as human beings, as men, is to sit in pain and to sit in uncertainty and to not do anything about it. That is literally handing our power away. Like, you can't control the government. You can't control what's happening in the schools. You can't control what's happening with the cities and all this sort of shit. What you can control is what you think, what you feel, what you do and don't do, how you react, and how you respond. So just remember that. And sometimes it's hard to remember. I also want to touch on this. There is this war on masculinity right now. It is wrong to be a man. It is wrong to provide. It is wrong to put your hand up and protect women. Women can be men, men can be women. This bullshit that's been going on is destroying society. Masculinity at its core is not toxic. Masculinity is the ability to protect, to provide, so that your wife can be a mother, so that society can function as a whole. Men go to war to die to protect women and children. Men are strong, they are capable. Now, we've been completely demonized that if you're a strong man, you're a tyrant. You're wrong, especially if you're a straight white male. It's fucking crazy. And a big part of
Yeah.
why society is struggling right now is because as men, we have been demonized. But a powerful man, he takes that masculinity. He doesn't show up as a tyrant, he shows up as a leader. He is firm, he is strong, but he's also empathetic and understanding. He makes difficult decisions. And masculine men often sacrifice themselves deeply for the greater good. They sacrifice their joy, their freedom to provide for their family. They sacrifice their lives in war to provide for their country. Masculinity gets to come back and it gets to be recognized as something healthy. Because I'll tell you right now, when a feminist or a black lesbian woman is caught up in a fire, she doesn't want another black lesbian woman climbing in there. She wants a strong masculine man to come save her. On the battlefield, it's the same thing. Now, I don't care if you're black or lesbian, all power to you. I love the fact that you're black and lesbian. The point is that masculinity shows up when we most need it. And because we're destroying it, there's less of it to show up. So as men, we get to be masculine, we get to be firm, we get to be strong, we get to understand the sacrifices we are making. And that gets to be not demonized. That gets to be fucking celebrated, man. I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about this because it's fucking crazy the world we live in. It's clown world. Absolutely.
There's something in that deep, dark, penetrating masculine, which is really the recognition that as men, to understand our power is actually to use it all the way through, to penetrate all the way through. If you feel your power, but you doubt yourself and don't go all in and are not feeling aligned to being able to show up powerfully, it actually creates a lack of safety. And so, yeah, this place of power is really like it's an all or nothing. And it doesn't mean that I always get it right. It means that I commit to doing something and I go through with it while also fact checking myself, making sure that I'm being kept in alignment with the promises that I make,
Yeah.
but going all in and going after it. But like going half in I think that's the piece where yeah. And I also don't blame people for doing this. And I've noticed it in myself as well. You start to doubt yourself or you worry what other people will think maybe, or yeah, some sense that you could get canceled for speaking your authentic truth. But when you don't deliver your authentic truth all the way through, people can feel that doubt. And then they don't know if they can trust you because you haven't trusted yourself enough to stand in your power and deliver all the way through.
And that's courage. Courage is being able to speak the truth despite what may or may not happen to you. Courage is being able
Yeah.
to run on those battlefront, those lines. We're currently not in war. You and I aren't holding guns, running down the front lines. The
Right.
new war is being fought on the front lines of thinking and masculinity and being able to go all in, like you say. And that requires a deep level of courage. But at the end of the day, that's how you build confidence as a man. You can fake it as a man. You can wear a nice watch. You can say you're the man, but you know deep down if your relationship's fucked, if you don't speak your truth, if your body is fat and overweight and you can't even see your penis anymore because you got a gut. Like people laugh about that when I say it. It's sad, right? And I get it. It's hard. But if you know that you're not exercising, eating well, you're not in a great relationship, you can fake it, but you know deep down that you're not the man you need to be. And confidence comes from courage. It comes from doing the hard shit. It comes from proving to yourself that you are the man. And it's not an arrogant, I am the man. It's like, I've done the right things for so long that my body is in alignment, my mind is in alignment, my relationship is in alignment, my wealth is in alignment. I've proven to myself that I do the hard shit. I speak my truth. I am the man. I don't need you to think I'm the man, but I know deep down I deserve to be the man. And that is something every modern man doesn't deserve, because you don't deserve it, but you get to experience if you choose to. Like, how many men can honestly look in the mirror and go, I'm enough. I am the man. I want to be better, but I am already enough. I desire more, but I already have enough. I have earned this status. I believe in myself. I have self-love, self-respect, self-appreciation, self-mastery, 0.1%, 0.01%. That's why we call our business the empowered man. You're in a place of power, bulletproof. You get to achieve that. It's such a powerful feeling, man.
Right. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thanks for making the time to be on this podcast and yeah, sharing your magic. Your energy is fucking on point, bro. And yeah, I can see the impact that you're making there down under, in spite of all the bullshit and fuckery that's unfolding. So yeah, kudos to you. Yeah, man, I love how I see you showing up in the world. And although we haven't yet met in person, I know it's in our future, brother. I'm going to come down there, and if at any point you come through Latin America, you always have a place to stay with the whole crew.
Thank you. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah,
It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope that someone somewhere has got a bit of value from this. And, you know, if there's anything I can say is that you have so much power within you. Every single one of us do. And it's sometimes hard to see that. But if you chip away at it brick by brick, you become so powerful. And it is such a great place to live. And it's a place I'm very new to, but it's possible for everyone.
yeah, bro, you're transmitting it so beautifully. Where can people connect with you? The work that you're doing, yeah, your relationship stuff, your men's groups. What's a good place for them to connect?
Yeah, so the two best places are on Instagram. So Tony with an I, Toni, empowered man. So TONIEMPOWERED, man. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
And then if you Google or YouTube the Empowered Man podcast, we're on Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. So yeah, those are the two best places. Feel free to send me a DM if you got value from this or check out the podcast and we can connect from there.
Beautiful, brother. Thank you so much for dropping in, and let's do this again sometime.
Thank you so much, Gareth. Appreciate you, brother.